Can you guys hear me? Okay. In 2013, President Barack Obama said, in the wealthiest nation on earth, no one should go broke just because they get sick. My friend's dad, Will, has a stroke. He is the breadwinner of the family. And because he worked 2 jobs at the same time, he cannot get Medicare from the government. And when he got sick and couldn't go to work to take care of his family, it was a huge financial burden on his family. Out of the wealthiest nation in the world, I found myself with a uniquely American problem. At that moment, I wasn't just worried if he would live. I was worried what if he survived? He hasn't reached retirement age yet, and his kids are still young. Did he have a comprehensive insurance? Would his work continue to cover his insurance? Will he be able to afford long-term care? Would his family be able to afford accommodate him? Was there anything I could do? Would this force his family into bankruptcy? And today I will explain why our current healthcare system is a problem, how it impacts you, my solution, what the world would look like with these solutions, and how to take actions. So our current healthcare system is a problem. 18% of Americans don't have healthcare insurance. In April issues of American Journal of Public Health article, single payer reform hit the evidence, not the short sales. It states that 40 million Americans don't have health care insurance. If these Americans experience a medical emergency, it's either try to live through it or pay an expensive out of pocket. Almost 1 out of 5 Americans will have to make that choice as of April 2021. According to the Los Angeles article from September 2019, an American scandal, medical bankruptcy. Almost 500,000 Americans go into bankruptcy each year due to medical bills. The same article states that GoFundMe hosts more than 250,000 campaigns per year, rising more than 650 million a year for medical expenses. In our current system, hundreds of thousands of Americans depend on this campaign to pay medical bills. The current healthcare system is the problem for some Americans that can affect all Americans. This impacts you in numerous ways. Universal healthcare has direct impact on people's health and welfare. Having affordable universal healthcare not only is the American dream, but it's really help lower healthcare costs for an economy. According to the article written by Kimberly Amadeo, she states that the United States is the only one of 33 developed countries that doesn't have universal healthcare. For example, if your family member was really sick and need urgent healthcare, but couldn't afford it because they weren't eligible for healthcare, and that does mean that they shouldn't get the help that they need. No, people are sick need and deserve the healthcare attentions. We need universal health coverage because it benefits us and it would have a positive impact. By not having affordable healthcare, it's caused many problems to people's health and their finance. This is a problem affects all of us, and this is how we can address it. I create a policy that would solve this problem. The Slender Plan will create a single paying care system for Medicare for all, where the federal government provides universal coverage to all American people. Estimates suggest that the expense may be between 25 trillion and 32 trillion over 10 years. Although it sounds expensive, Slender claimed that removing the high expense of the documents is being managed by the insurance industry. The plan can move into places as soon as possible because millions of American people are suffering because they don't have insurance. Universal health care program can provide medical treatment for everyone, regardless of their income. Up to 34 million Americans who are uninsured will benefit from this. Our current plan is clearly intended not to provide quality care to everyone in a cost-effective manner, but to increase revenue for certain companies, the Medicare industry, and supplier of medical suppliers. If we can address this problem with our solutions, this is how we can benefit. The world would be different with my plan in place. Universal health coverage would give every person, everywhere access to the quality healthcare without suffering financial hardships. Because every citizen should be able to receive treatment without bearing the threat of not being able to afford it, because good health is the center of human happiness and well-being. Moreover, free healthcare would help reduce the spread of infectious diseases like HIV and AIDS. Without having access to healthcare coverage, many people lack basic healthcare and treatments. Many people fall into poverty every year trying to access this service, and households have to borrow money or even sell access to pay for healthcare. According to an article that I came across, a coronavirus survival was able to survive the deadly disease in a close call of death, but was joined with a bill of 1.1 million without healthcare coverage. Moreover, while the corona testing is free, some people will still have to face expensive emergency room and hospital bills seeking tests and treatment. Now that we know the benefits of healthcare for all, this is how we can get it done. There's so much everyone in the audience can do to help. Some places to start would be going online, doing research, and finding credible resources to donate or sign the petitions for healthcareforall.org. It's a good place to start. Something you can do to help this cause is vote and or talk to your local city hall. When taking any of these actions, you must first educate yourself. After you feel comfortable enough with the topic, then try to educate others. Sign the petitions or talk to the city hall or vote. So today I explain why our current healthcare system is a problem, how it impacts you, my solutions, and what the world would look like with this solution, how to take actions. Kim Das has Instagram, and luckily her stepsister is a nurse and immediately recognized her DAS system. In less than 2 hours in surgery, they have an excellent stroke team. They were able to prevent major damage to her dad's brain. He quickly recovered and was able to return to work. Universal healthcare promotes not only a better way for life for you in the event of emergency, but for all, by providing a safety net that everyone can depend on time of need. Thank you for listening.
Alrighty. My name is Angel Ramil, and I am a fully vaccinated individual. The World Health Organization states that there are over 250 million total COVID-19 cases so far and over 5 million deaths connected to the virus. Out of the total COVID-19 cases, you probably know someone or multiple people that were unfortunately included in that count. Something that no one should have to go through is hearing one of their family members or loved ones contract the COVID-19 virus. Sadly, this was something that my family and I experienced unexpectedly. Getting a call from my family in the Philippines saying that some of them tested positive for COVID-19 made us worry about whether or not they were going to get through it, especially because they were unvaccinated. It honestly upsetted me at the time that my family in the Philippines couldn't get vaccinated due to how expensive it was. And it made me think of how fortunate people are to be living in countries that make it easily available to them. So today I will talk about how not getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a problem, how it impacts you, my solution to the problem, what the world would look like with my solution in place, and how you can take action. As I just mentioned, not getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a problem. Many people during the early development of the vaccine were very hesitant on getting it due to health concerns. According to a UC Davis article written by Karen Nikos-Rose, the four most common reasons for vaccine hesitancy include side effects, possible allergic reactions, questionable effectiveness, and preference for natural immunity through infection. Some of these concerns are reasonable, especially the side effects of the vaccine, but it should be noted that the CDC considers the side effects of the vaccine to be normal because it indicates that our body is fighting against the virus. There's no doubt that not getting the COVID-19 vaccine impacts us today. In the New York Times article by Aaron E. Carroll, he says the pandemic still remains the same for unvaccinated individuals because hospitals are, quote, filling up again in states with low vaccination rates, end quote. Even though there are people who already have the vaccine, for those unvaccinated individuals, the level of risk still remains the same. If there are still many people who are unvaccinated, then it makes it more difficult for us to go back to those days before the pandemic. Now that I talked about how not getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a problem, I will now move on and talk about how not getting vaccinated impacts your safety needs. Not getting the COVID-19 vaccine impacts your safety needs. These safety needs can include your protection against the virus, and it can also include the protection of others from it. According to an analysis done by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on April 4th to July 17th of 2021, unvaccinated individuals accounted for 92% of the total COVID-19 cases, 92% of the total hospitalizations, and 91% of the total COVID-19 deaths. Based on these high percentages, the majority of the COVID-19 related incidents such as cases, hospitalizations, and deaths mainly consisted of people who were not vaccinated. Therefore, if you don't get vaccinated, then you are not only likely to contract the virus, but you are also likely to infect other people. With the concern for our safety needs in regards to people not getting vaccinated, I will now talk about my proposition. My proposition is simple, and it is to urge everyone to get vaccinated. According to the CDC, the COVID-19 vaccines are funded by taxpayer money and are given to the public for free despite an individual's insurance or immigration status. The CDC also notes that vaccination providers can get reimbursements from health insurance, Medicare, or Medicaid. In other words, the public does not have to pay to get the vaccine, even if an individual doesn't have insurance. Rather than charging that individual, the vaccination provider will be paid by government insurance programs instead. So please take advantage of the free COVID-19 vaccines. As for the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines, the CDC states that the vaccines reduce the risk of infection by 90% or more. 90% is a very high percentage of protection. This simply means that people who are vaccinated have a very small chance of contracting the virus, specifically 10%. Now that I finished talking about my proposition, I will move on and talk about how the world would be a better place with this proposition. The world would be a better place with more people getting vaccinated. I mean, don't you want to go back to those days? We were all living normally before the pandemic. In the New York Times article by Jan Hoffman, a 17-year-old girl named Isabella was asked why she wanted to get the vaccine. And she replied saying that she has a lot of family members that have a high risk of getting COVID-19, and she wants to be able to hang out with her friends again without having to worry about the health concerns. Isabella is one of many people that want to be around their friends and family again. As more and more people get vaccinated, it makes it more possible for us to go back to those normal days before the pandemic. Just like Isabella, we can finally interact and socialize with people that we want to. But let's imagine a world where there are still many people who are unvaccinated. Rather than going outside and seeing bright smiles from people, we will still be stuck seeing masks. Instead of going to fun places and traveling, we will mainly be stuck at home because we can't really go out as much due to regulations. Moving on from talking about how the world would be a better place with this proposition, I will talk about how you can take action. There are many things that you can do to get more people vaccinated. I believe that the best way would be to keep educating ourselves about the COVID-19 vaccine and to share truthful information to other people. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, also known as the CDC, is the source that often has updates and information on COVID-19 related content. If you are vaccinated, please share your experience with other people. Your experience may be very helpful to them. If you are unvaccinated but now want to be vaccinated, then please do some research online, find a convenient place for you to get the vaccine, and book an appointment as soon as possible if no walk-ins are accepted. Today, I explained why not getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a problem, how it impacts you, my solution to the problem, what the world would look like with my solution in place, and how you can take action. Now, you're probably wondering, Angel, why should I care about getting the COVID-19 vaccine? Why should I care about others who are unvaccinated? No one should have to worry about another person that they care about contracting the virus. And no one should have to worry about their own personal health getting affected by the virus. Coming from my own experience with family members testing positive for COVID-19, it truly was one of the scariest times of my lives. So for those of you who are still unvaccinated, please reconsider and get vaccinated. Thank you.
All right, well, hello. So, per PETA, there are over 70 million homeless dogs and cats in the US struggling to survive right now. Now, I'd like to say, first off, that I'm a somewhat credible and trustworthy person about this topic because I've spent many hours volunteering with animals, and many of them were neglected by not being spayed or neutered. I've experienced firsthand adoptable homeless pets that are found on the streets because of neglect and shelter overpopulation. Today, I'm going to explain why the overpopulation of neglected animals is a problem and how it impacts you, what the world would look like with my solution, and how you can take action. Overpopulation of neglected animals is a huge problem. Per the Humane Society of the USA, 3 million pets are euthanized every single year, and about 80% of them are adoptable. This impacts humans because when animals are left to fend for themselves, their survival instincts cause them to look for food and wander into areas that are heavily populated by humans. This is important because animals are more likely to be killed on the highway and roads, which cause car accidents, property damage, and human injury. As you can see, overpopulation of neglected animals is an issue, and it can definitely impact your human safety, specifically all of our safety. When animals are neglected or left to find their own food and shelter, they can become harmful and territorial, specifically to your physical and emotional state, as well as your personal property. 1.2 million dogs are hit by a car every year, per the petplayground.com. Also, per a study by Baisong Yu in 2018, most reported car accidents caused by animals were included with dogs. Animals who are neglected and left for dead often have a fight or flight instinct to survive. Scared animals will often bolt into traffic, which cause car accidents. Hungry animals will often hang around homes, may become aggressive to your pets for food, and cause harm and sharing diseases. Again, animals that are left to fend for themselves and are not spayed and neutered are the primary reason for overpopulation. If people can't find homes for these animals that they no longer want to take care of, they'll take them to overpopulated shelters or give them away for free or dump them on the side of the road to fend for themselves. Per the Humane Society, 80% of the responsible animal owners do spay and neuter their dogs and cats. But that leaves 20% of animals who are not. And those animals who are most of those animals are being neglected and abandoned, and they are more likely to breed, causing more overpopulation. Because the overpopulation of neglected animals impacts your safety and human safety, I'm proposing a new citywide proposition to reduce this overpopulation. This proposition will require all animal owners to spay and neuter their pets. This is the best way to reduce the overpopulation. Animal owners will be required to spay and neuter their pets within 3 months of ownership. Animals need to be registered with the city as well, so that they're kept track of. But special consideration will be made for pedigree animals because that is a whole business of breeding and you know. The city maintains a database of all the animals, and the proposition will begin on January 1st of 2022. Now that I've discussed the spay and neuter proposition, let's discuss how it will make the world a better place. This policy will help reduce the amount of unnecessary breeding, which will result in less overpopulation in shelters, which in turn results in less animal neglect. This policy will reduce the numbers of animals on the streets, which will reduce the amount of car accidents caused by animals. You won't have to be as fearful walking on the street with aggressive animals who are just left there and are trying to survive, resulting in less medical costs. More animals will be in loving homes, and spaying and neutering also helps your animals live longer because they won't have testicular cancer or ovarian cancers. Now that I've talked about my proposition, and how it will make the world a better place, let's talk about how you can help. There are many things that you can do. First of all, the main thing, get your animals spayed and neutered. Spread the word, share with your friends, and ask if their dogs and cats are neutered. And if they're not, explain why it's so important. Today, I've explained why overpopulation of neglected animals is a problem and how it impacts you, my solution, and how the world would look with my solution, and how you can take action. Most of us have come across animals on the streets or heard sad stories of animal neglect. I've worked with these animals personally, and I plan to be a vet tech one day, which makes me a credible source for this topic. One of my main goals is to encourage the reduction of unwanted animals. We have the ability to help. If you get your own pet spayed and neutered, you won't be a part of the problem. Do the right thing, spay or neuter your dog, and treat your pets right by spay and neutering them today. Thank you.
Hello, guys. So Sommer states that by limiting the planet's warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100, we can stave off severe climate disruptions, which could impact hunger, conflicts, and droughts across the world. Breathing the ash-filled air and seeing hazy orange skies seems like a scene from like a Mad Max movie or from a post-apocalyptic world, but that was reality a few years ago for me and many others living in California. The main cause of that was forest fires caused by climate change. Today, I will explain why climate change is a problem and how it impacts you, my solution to the problem, what the world would look like with my solution in place, and how you can take action. Climate change is a problem. Since the Industrial Revolution, wealthy nations are the main emitters of greenhouse gases. In an article by Friedrich J. and Pickens, they state that the top 3 greenhouse gas emitters were China, the European Union, and the United States, which contribute about 41.5% to the global emissions, while the bottom 100 countries only account for 3.6%. Because these nations emit more than the bottom 100 countries, they should be more responsible in combating climate change. Coastal communities are also in danger of being inhabitable. In an NPR article, Sommer states that sea level could rise by 1 to 3 feet by 2100, according to the UN's Climate Research Group. High tides and bigger storms cause climate change, threaten the existence of coastal communities and coastal cities, which are important to many infrastructure across the world. Now that I've talked about how climate change is a problem, I'll talk about how climate change impacts the housing market. This impacts your safety needs. As homes close to the oceans are destroyed from storms and rising oceans, houses and rent will go up in price. In a Mercury News article, in San Jose, there are 1,308 homes worth nearly $1.2 billion at risk by 2100. Because of the destroyed houses, and the supply of houses will decrease, thus increasing housing prices and also rent prices. Now that I talk about climate change and its impact on your safety needs, I will talk about how solar farms can be used to reduce climate change. I propose to extensively install solar panels in areas of high sun exposure. Installing a large amount of solar panels will provide a substantial amount of energy in order to reduce fossil fuel consumption. The main body that should fund this proposition would be the government. This policy should be implemented immediately and with haste. This proposition should be adopted by all countries that offer such areas for it, which will reduce their consumption in fossil fuel oils and their reliance on foreign nations in buying those oils. Now that I talk about how solar farms can be used to reduce climate change, I will talk about the results of solar farms. The world will be a better place if nations build more solar farms, and solar farms could be built on top of regular agricultural farms. Flesher and Weber's reports that with less direct sunlight, they lose less water to evaporation and uses less water to water the plants. The solar panels will prevent evaporation, and the farmers will get dual income from providing energy back to the electrical grid and also money from selling their produce. Land that is not used for solar will cause soil erosion and waste. If the land is heavily used for agriculture, the soil will eventually erode because it's being relied on heavily, which causes farmers to lose a part of their income because they have to set aside a portion of their field to let the nutrients from the soil come back. Now that I talk about the results of solar farms, I will talk about things you could do to help combat against climate change. While climate change is a big problem, little actions have big impacts on climate change. Helping reduce climate change can take place wherever you're at, such as turning off the lights when not in use, and using less water, recycling, using less gas, carpooling, and taking public transportation. Climate change is tied closely to your finances. As I mentioned earlier, gas, electric, and water bills can be reduced at the same time while helping the earth. Today, I explained why climate change is a problem, how it impacts you, my solution to the problem, what the world would look like with my solution in place, and how you can take action. Climate change is drastically sinking the housing supply while increasing land. And should this continue, people are going to be living in crowded conditions across the world. We must come together and stop this, not only for our financial benefits, but also for the earth well-being. Our planet is dying. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Albert Einstein once said, I quote, "The hardest thing to understand in the world is the income tax." I end the quote. Keep that in mind because financial rights are one of the most difficult areas to understand. You know that everyone wants, your money, corporations, the government, etc. Even on social media, we saw like ads popping up every time telling us, oh, you should buy this, you should buy that. And
And we live in a society where it looks like consumerism is a common thing. And well, at the end of the year, we have to pay taxes, right? Based on our expenses and our incomes. It seems to me that you sometimes have to pay way more to the IRS, even though your income is not enough or you don't have the resources. So, you know, that can bring a lot of crisis, like housing crisis and, you know, other problems. That is why financial education is important and should be included in the educational plan for students at the ANSA. So to explain a little bit about this topic, I have to bring you to my own experience. I moved to the States 4 years ago as part of a program called the Au Pair program. And basically what this program does is that it allows, you know, young women around their 20s to come to the US and work in childcare and live with a family for 2 years. Au pairs receive a salary, which is, in my opinion, very low. It was like $200 per week, which means au pairs work $4 an hour. And besides that, au pairs also had to pay taxes, which is, you know, kind of crazy. But, you know, it was a very, you know, confusing process, you know, to me at that time, until I got informed and realized that by law in the States, in order to file taxes, you will have to have an income of at least $12,400. If you do the math, you will realize that au pairs, you know, gain like less than that. However, the company I was working for still was telling me that I had to pay taxes and it was mandatory. And if I didn't do it, like something bad will happen to me. And then I realized that this company was paying their taxes, you know, out of the au pairs money, the workers' money. And you could say basically this program, you know, will trick people to believe that, you know, they were having a cultural experience, but, you know, it hit a lot of, you know, another things, you know, happening, you know, not everything was like happiness, right? I was wondering about like the logic on, you know, like paying taxes and how it works, because when I get graduated from the ANSA, I will have to, you know, pay tax. I will have to go there and work in some company or whatever, or organization. And I think, you know, education in economy is essential to empower people to fight for our financial rights. So today I will explain why it's important to have a, you know, I will say mandatory, but it will be helpful to have a class on how to file your taxes, how to, you know, your rights in terms of financial, you know, issues, how it impacts you as a student, my solution to the problem, and what our world as a students at the ANSA will look like if, you know, this is taken in place, and how you can take action. So, you know, let's go like broader. Some people don't have the resources to pay the amount of money required from the IRS. We need to talk about the economic crisis that some people have in America, and acknowledge, you know, and that are not acknowledged by the government. You know, according to Fox, there is 7% of the people didn't have enough resources to pay to pay taxes in 2019. It is important to know how this system works to find out about your, you know, financial rights. Sometimes the IRS asks you to give them, you know, certain amount of money and you don't have how to pay it. And it is important, you know, to kind of like know how this works, so you don't have to, you know, be like giving your money to the government, you know, like that, because you have needs, right? And okay, so according to Greene and Lewis, a lot of people are surprised to find out how many deductions and credits they are eligible for. So there are like ways to kind of like save a little bit of money to, for your needs, for yourself. You have to eat, you have to do like, stuff. And this is like when, financial education comes to the conversation as a crucial thing to, like fight back for your rights. Like, you're not taking my money, like I need to survive in this country, like, and still the government is pushing us. As future members of the workers community, knowing about our financial rights through learning, through class, or through readings, and thinking critically about that will help us in the future when we have to file taxes, for example. The economic system is designed to give privileges to big corporations, taking the power from the people, which is basically, like when they ask you for big amounts of money and you don't have the resources to pay. So now that I talk about, how economic education is important to empower students to have tools in the future, I will talk about like the needs that, this will meet for the students. So the configuration of a social and economic system, that we are currently living in, we have the idea that having, is the capitalistic idea of having more, like give me more capital, meaning money, meaning any other kind of goods, to meet our basic needs, like having money for, to go to the groceries, to pay for rent, and, so on and so forth. On the other hand, the amount of capital that people, that a person has also means a social need, where it gives, money, it gives social status, there is a sociological conversation around like the acquiring capital too. These needs cannot be met if people work hours and then give a significant amount of their salaries to pay taxes. This creates inequality and divides, still, the gap between classes is, getting bigger and bigger. According to Mitchell, recent research regarding economy has shown that a significant amount of corporation tax payments comes at the expense of the workers. So this is kind of like when I was explaining in the beginning, some companies are asking for, more money from the workers to pay their taxes. There are multiple reasons why these corporations do it, because they have business outside the US, or, they have some economic trade with the government. Therefore, education in financial rights is important to fight back. And, also to say that workers matter and they have to, to survive as well. So now that I talk about, how big corporations take money from the workers, which have consequences in people in general for, meeting their basic needs. I will talk about like what kind of policy, educational policy, we can implement at the ANZA. So, so as I mentioned before, financial rights are important, and I think it will be very helpful if we, if its students, know more about this, and beyond like the help that the financial aid office give us. This can be adding, as part of a course in general education requirements about filing out your, taxes, knowing like the rights and the financial, issues. And I will bring, something that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau said, and they said that this organization points out that it is important to teach young adults how to manage their money, which can improve the knowledge on financial rights. So basically this policy, it will ask the Foothill Dianza district to open as, you know, a kind of like space or classes around like financial rights. This policy will be funded by the college district, and it can be like implemented next year. All right, so now let's visualize like how our life as students and future workers will be if this is implemented. Our life as students and future workers will be better, will be a better place because we will have the tools to fight back the organizations or whatever, you know, the government, and, you know, to say we have this rights and you don't have to, you know, like I don't have to give you like what you're asking me for, since, you know, sometimes it will, you know, it seems that it will be way more than your income, if that makes sense. So student will have, you know, the tools to fight back the oppressive system. The difference that this policy will bring is that, you know, we will think critically around like our financial rights, and it would empower us, you know, and there is no disadvantage, at least for students, but for the district, you know, who has to spend more in the students, you know, to opening like a class, or, you know, that will mean that they will be investing more in the students, which, you know, they should be doing that. So personally, I am scared for next year regarding, you know, like to filling out my taxes, because everything is so expensive every year, and with the, you know, current economic crisis, I have seen like many people losing their homes because they don't have money to pay rent. Please think about how I will be okay. So I will ask you to please think about how it will benefit us as students, you know, to have a class in financial rights. There are many things, you know, that you can do to help. We can start a petition and send it to the ANSA's President Lloyd Holmes. You can spread the word about this petition. We can sign it, and if you see someone asking for signatures, please listen today, because whatever they're asking for may be, you know, your concern tomorrow. So in conclusion, education in financial rights and knowing the process of paying taxes will empower people to fight back against the big corporations, and will unite workers to have enough capital to meet their basic needs. Don't let corporations to take your power and money away from you if that means that you won't have enough to sustain yourself. It is important to have financial education, and there are multiple stories out there. Community college students have different backgrounds and different struggles. Educating in financial rights will be the first step to give tools to anyone who needs it. Financial rights are human rights as well. Thank you so much.